Grandma, no offense, but nobody wants to see this old stuff. You're like an outdated relic, living in a museum of things no one cares about anymore. Silence slammed into the living room. I felt something warm trickle down my cheek. Not tears, but a tiny, unwitting spray Madison let escape as she spoke. A casual spittle that, in that moment, felt as deliberate as her words. My son Chris and his wife Jessica froze in their chairs, eyes glued to their plates as if the china patterns held the secrets of the universe. No one spoke. No one defended me. 70 years. 70 years of life reduced to an outdated relic by my own granddaughter on my birthday, at the very table I'd set with such care, in front of the orange bundt cake I'd spent the morning baking. I took a slow, deep breath. Gently, I dabbed my face with the embroidered linen napkin, the one that had belonged to my mother. My hands trembled, but my voice emerged steady. "I understand why you might think that," I said calmly, rising from my chair. "I'm going to go get something." As I walked towards my bedroom, I felt the full weight of every one of my 70 years. My joints ached, as they often did. But a much deeper ache bloomed in my chest, the kind no pharmacy cure could touch. You must be wondering how it came to this. How a grandmother and her grandchild could drift so far apart that words like those could be uttered without hesitation, without a shred of immediate remorse. Let me take you back a little. Everything began to shift about 6 months ago. Madison had always been a sweet girl, even through her prickly teenage years. I remember her small, perched at this very table, begging for stories about the olden days. Her eyes would gleam when I spoke of a time before cell phones, when letters took weeks to cross states, when television only existed in shades of gray. "Grandma, how did you even talk to your friends?" she'd ask, utterly fascinated by a world without text messages. But then came college. Madison enrolled in digital marketing. New friends, new interests. Slowly, her Sunday visits became sparse. Hugs, fleeting. Conversations, shallower. "She's swamped with college work, Mom. She's just busy," Chris would offer as an excuse, even as he himself scrolled through emails on his phone during our shared meals. Jessica, my daughter-in-law, was polite, but distant. One of those people whose civility is born of obligation, not affection. I never complained. Life had taught me not everyone expresses love the same way. 2 months ago, when I called to invite the family for my 70th birthday, I detected a slight tremor in Chris's voice. "Mom, do we really have to go? You know how Sundays are. We're always just wiped out from the week." That stung. My only son, questioning if he really had to attend his own mother's 70th birthday. "Of course you don't have to, son," I replied with a calm I didn't feel. "But I would be very happy if you came. It's not every day someone turns 70. He sighed on the other end of the line. "All right, Mom. We'll be there." In that moment, something vital shifted inside me. Not anger, not resentment. It was a clear, quiet awakening. I started looking at my life through new eyes. 3 times a week, I volunteered at Hope Haven, a shelter for at-risk youth in the next neighborhood. There, I was Ms. Linda, the woman who taught crochet, spun tales, and most importantly, truly listened. Those children and teenagers, many abandoned by their own families, looked at me as if I were a rare treasure. Not a relic, but a living, breathing treasure, brimming with stories and experiences to share. "Ms. Linda, did you live through the Vietnam War era?" Mateus, 15, would ask, eager for history. Miss Linda, can you show me that crochet stitch again? Juliana, 12, would inquire, her dreams alight with fashion design. There, my 70 years were met with admiration, not disdain. There, I wasn't outdated, I was experienced. It was with this newfound clarity that, 2 weeks before my birthday, I scheduled an appointment with Mr. Henderson, my lawyer for decades. I explained my wishes. He regarded me with a blend of surprise and understanding. Are you certain, Miss Linda? It's a significant decision. I am, Robert. More certain than I've been about most things in my life. I signed the papers that very day. I left his office feeling a remarkable lightness, as if I'd just made the most sensible decision of my entire 70 years. And so, my birthday arrived. I woke early, as always. I baked the orange bundt cake, its soft interior filled with the glaze Arthur, my late husband, had loved so dearly. I set the table with the delicate lace tablecloth I'd embroidered when I was pregnant with Chris. I arranged old photographs around the living room, not out of hollow nostalgia, but because each frame told a quiet story of resilience. Me, at 25, a fresh nursing school graduate, the first in my family to earn a college degree. Arthur and I in front of this very house, the day we finally bought it after a decade of scrimping and saving. Little Chris, perched on his dad's lap, both of them with that same lopsided grin that still, even now, melted my heart. When the doorbell rang, I smoothed my navy blue dress, bought specifically for the occasion, and brightened my lipstick. Grandma Linda is ready to receive her most precious gift, I thought, a fragile thread of hope still clinging, her family's affection. But what I received were cold, swift hugs, distant, averted gazes, and finally, Madison's sharp, cutting words, followed by that accidental spittle that perfectly encapsulated her regard for me. Now, returning to the present moment, I walked into my bedroom and retrieved the folder Mr. Henderson had given me. I returned to the living room, where 3 pairs of eyes tracked me with distinctly different expressions. Madison's thinly veiled irritation, Chris's restless impatience, Jessica's polite disinterest. I placed the folder on the table and sat down again. Madison, do you know how I managed to buy this house? I worked as a nurse for 40 years. I cared for people, held hands in their final moments, cleaned wounds that would make you faint. With the money I saved, I bought this museum, as you call it. I opened the folder, revealing the papers within. This is my will. Up until 2 weeks ago, you would have inherited this house and my life savings when I passed. But I realized that outdated relics like myself need to make wise decisions. Chris's eyes widened, a flicker of shock. Jessica swallowed hard, her composure cracking. For the first time that afternoon, I commanded the complete attention of all 3. I've decided to donate everything to Hope Haven, the shelter for at-risk youth where I volunteer. Kids who, unlike some, cherish every small act of kindness, who hug me without me having to ask, who listen to my outdated stories with shining eyes. Madison's phone slipped from her grasp, clattering softly onto the table. For the first time that afternoon, she truly looked at me. Grandma, I didn't mean... Don't worry, I interrupted, a serene smile touching my lips. I'm not doing this to punish you. I'm doing it because, at 70, I finally understood where my love is truly valued. I blew out the last candle still flickering on the cake. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a birthday to celebrate. Tomorrow morning, the kids at the shelter are waiting for a special breakfast I promised them. The raw expression on Madison's face, A potent mix of shock, profound regret, and the dawning realization that she had so thoroughly underestimated me was the best gift I received that day. Chris stood up, his face flushed with a potent cocktail of anger and acute embarrassment. "Mom, you can't be serious. This house, it's our family inheritance." "Inheritance is built with presents, son, not with obligatory birthday visits." Jessica placed a placating hand on her husband's arm, as if attempting to rein him in. "Miss Linda, perhaps you're being a bit hasty. Madison is young. She speaks without thinking sometimes." I shook my head, my composure unyielding. "It's not about what Madison said today. It's about what you three haven't said these past few years." I stood and began clearing the plates. My hands no longer trembled. I felt a surge of strength that didn't come from my muscles, but from somewhere much deeper within. "You are always welcome in this house, as long as it's mine. But from today, the rules are different. Respect isn't begged for, it's earned." Madison remained seated, her phone forgotten, her eyes locked on me as if seeing me for the very first time. "Grandma, can I help you clear the table?" I smiled, a tentative start perhaps. "Of course, honey. And while we're putting things away, I can tell you about the day I marched for women's rights, back in '75. You think only your generation knows how to fight for change?" For the first time that afternoon, I saw a genuine spark of interest in my granddaughter's eyes. Chris and Jessica exchanged uneasy glances, clearly unsure how to react to this new Susan revealing herself before them. A Susan who, at 70, was discovering she still had a wealth of wisdom to impart, and who would now carefully choose who truly deserved her lessons. What they didn't know was that afternoon was merely the prelude. The outdated relic was about to prove she held far more value than they had ever imagined. And that some of life's most profound lessons emerge precisely from those who have lived long enough to grasp what truly matters. But that's a story for another day. As we put away the dishes, Madison remained silent, her gaze still avoiding mine. Her fingers, tipped with black-painted nails, trembled slightly as she held the plates. "So, Grandma, this protest in '75, she murmured finally, her voice hushed, as if testing dangerous ground. I smiled, drying a plate with the embroidered dish towel. "It was during a tumultuous time, honey. The Vietnam War had just ended, and people were really starting to question everything. Women were finding their voice. I was 25, fresh out of nursing school. Back then, women couldn't do much without their husbands say so. We couldn't even open a bank account on our own. Needed permission just to work." "Seriously?" Her eyes widened, genuinely surprised. "Seriously. Your grandpa Arthur, he was different. He supported me. When he heard about the rally, he drove me there himself." In the living room, Chris and Jessica spoke in strained whispers. I could pick up fragments. "Can't do that. It's her house. She must be senile." Madison noticed my gaze drifting. "They're worried about the house," she said, surprising me with her sudden frankness. "I know, sweetie. People tend to worry more about what they might lose than what they've already lost." "What do you mean?" "They've already lost years of connection with me, moments that won't come back. But they're only worried now about the house they might not inherit." Madison lowered her head, her purple bangs partially obscuring her eyes. "Me too, huh? I wasted time." I touched her shoulder lightly. "Time's never truly lost, Chloe. It always teaches us something." When we finished in the kitchen, Chris and Jessica were already standing, poised to leave. My son wore that familiar expression I'd known since his childhood. A taut mix of barely contained fury and rapid mental calculation. Mom, we need to talk about this absurd decision. Not today, but soon. I'll call to set something up. I nodded calmly. My door's always open, son. Jessica approached, giving me a kiss on the cheek, a touch longer than usual. Happy birthday, Barbara. I'm sorry if it wasn't what you expected. When it was Madison's turn to say goodbye, she hesitated. Her eyes were shimmering. Can I come back tomorrow, Grandma? After your visit to the shelter? That caught me by surprise. Of course you can, sweetie. Maybe. Maybe I could go with you sometime. To the shelter. Chris and Jessica exchanged confused glances. This was not the behavior they expected from their daughter. I'd love that, Chloe. The kids would truly enjoy meeting my granddaughter. After they left, I sat alone at the table, gazing at the half-eaten cake and the melted candles. 70 years. An entire life condensed into 2 tense Sunday hours. I picked up one of the photographs I'd scattered around the living room. Me at 32, with little Chris on my lap, in front of the hospital where I worked. I remembered that day as vividly as if it were yesterday. Mommy, why do you have to work today? It's Sunday. Chris, all of 5 years old, was pouting while I adjusted my crisp white nurse's uniform. Because there are sick people who need care, my love. Sickness doesn't take Sundays off. But Daddy said you worked too much. Arthur, who was taking our picture, lowered his camera with a sigh. I said your mom's the most dedicated woman I know, son. That's different. I crouched down to Chris's height. Mommy helps people get better, understand? It's important. More important than me? His little eyes glistened with unshed tears. That question broke my heart. I hugged him tight. Nothing in the world is more important than you, my son. Nothing. But sometimes we have to divide our time between the people we love and the people who need our help. He sniffled against my shoulder. When I grow up, I want to be important just like you, Mommy. Arthur snapped the photo at that exact moment. Me smiling, tears in my eyes, holding my small Chris. Little did I know that conversation would be etched in my memory for decades. Returning to the present, I traced my fingers over the photograph. How Chris had changed. From a boy who admired my dedication to a man who could barely spare 2 hours of his Sunday for me. The phone rang, jolting me from my thoughts. It was Eleanor, my longtime friend. So, Barbara, how was the party? Oh, Eleanor, it was enlightening. They didn't go. They did, but perhaps it would have been better if they hadn't. I recounted everything to her. Madison's words, my decision about the will, everyone's stunned reaction. Barbara, for heaven's sake! Did you really change the will, or was that just a bluff to scare them? I really did, Eleanor. 2 weeks ago. And you're truly okay with that? No regrets? I looked out the window, at the garden I'd tended for decades. Every plant, every flower held a story. You know what I've learned in 70 years, Eleanor. Regret is a luxury we can't afford when time is short. I'd rather act and perhaps make a mistake than do nothing, and surely live with regret. You were always the wisest of us, Barbara. It's not wisdom, friend. It's exhaustion. I'm tired of begging for attention from my own family. After hanging up, I prepared for bed. 70 years weigh on the body, even when the spirit feels revitalized. Before turning off the light, I looked at Arthur's photo on my bedside table. Did you see that, old man? Our outdated relic still has a few surprises up her sleeve. I could almost hear his gruff laugh in response. The next morning, I woke early, as usual. I dressed for the shelter, choosing a floral skirt and a light blue blouse. The children always said I looked pretty in blue. When I arrived at Hope House, I was met with a chorus of warm hugs and genuine smiles. "Mrs. Barbara, happy belated birthday!" shouted Lily, the little girl who loves crochet, rushing to embrace me. "How did you know it was my birthday, sweetie?" "The director told us. We made you something." I was led into the dining room, where a table was decorated with colorful drawings and a small homemade cake with a single candle. "It's for you to make a wish," explained Ethan, the boy always eager for current events, now carefully holding a flickering match. I looked at those children, some abandoned, some orphaned, all starved for affection, gathered to celebrate the 70th birthday of an old woman who merely gave them a few hours of her week. "You've already granted my wish," I said, feeling a prickle of tears in my eyes. After the impromptu breakfast, I sat on the porch with some of the girls to teach them crochet. That's when I saw a familiar car pull into the driveway. Madison emerged looking nervous and out of place. She wore simpler clothes than the day before. Jeans, a black t-shirt, her purple hair pulled back in a ponytail. "Your granddaughter?" Lily asked, curious. "Yes, sweetie, my granddaughter, Madison. She has purple hair, that's so cool." Madison approached hesitantly, as if unsure of her welcome. "Hi, Grandma. First period. I came like I said I would." "I'm glad you came, sweetie. These are Lily and Maria. I'm teaching them how to crochet." The girls waved shyly, fascinated by Madison's vibrant hair. "Your hair is really pretty," Maria said timidly. Madison seemed surprised by the compliment. "Thanks. Can I sit with you guys?" "Of course. Do you know how to crochet too?" Lily asked. "Not really. My grandma tried to teach me once, but She paused, looking at me with a flash of guilt in her eyes. "I said it was an old person's thing," she finished in a low voice. "Well, it's never too late to learn," I responded, offering her a needle and yarn. To my surprise, Madison sat down and began to pay rapt attention to the instructions. Her fingers were clumsy with the needle, but she applied herself, her tongue caught between her teeth in concentration. After an hour of trying, she managed to make a small chain of stitches. "Look, Grandma! I did it!" There was a genuine enthusiasm in her voice that I hadn't heard in years. I smiled, feeling a wave of affection I thought I'd lost forever. "That's wonderful for a first attempt, sweetie." Later, while the girls went off to another activity, Madison and I were left alone on the porch. "Grandma, about yesterday." "We don't have to talk about that right now, Chloe." "No, I need to." She took a deep, shaky breath. "I was awful to you. Not just yesterday, but for a long time." I stayed silent, allowing her to continue. "When I was little, I adored your stories. Remember how I used to beg you to tell me about when you were a nurse?" "I remember, yes." Then I hit adolescence and I don't know. I just started thinking everything old was boring. My friends would make fun of their grandparents, saying they were outdated, that they didn't understand anything about the modern world. And I just wanted to fit in. She fidgeted nervously with the crochet yarn. "Last night, after we left your house, my parents argued the whole way home. Dad was furious about the house, and Mom kept saying it was my fault for being rude. I'm sorry they fought." "Don't be, because while they argued about the house and the money, all I could think about was how cruel I'd been to you, and how you, despite everything, kept treating me with such kindness. Her eyes welled up with tears. I don't deserve this, Grandma. I don't deserve your kindness after how I've treated you. I took her hands in mine. Madison, do you think 70 years of life haven't taught me anything about forgiveness? About how people can change? But are you really going to donate everything to the shelter? I am. Not to punish you or your parents, but because I believe it's the right thing to do. She nodded slowly. I think I get it. These kids, they truly love you. And I love them, just as I love you, even when you think I'm an outdated relic. Madison laughed, a watery sound. Can I come back here with you? Other times? Anytime you want, sweetie. In the following weeks, to everyone's surprise, Madison began accompanying me regularly to the shelter. At first, Chris and Jessica suspected it was a strategic maneuver to make me change my mind about the will. But it soon became clear that something far deeper was unfolding. Madison discovered that her digital design skills could genuinely help the shelter. She started creating vibrant posters for fundraising events, teaching basic computer skills to the teenagers, even modernizing the institution's website. One day, as we were heading home, she asked me something completely unexpected. Grandma, how did you and Grandpa Bob meet? I smiled, surprised by her genuine interest. It was at the hospital. I was a fresh out of nursing school nurse, and he'd broken his arm playing baseball with his buddies. Was it love at first sight? Far from it. I thought he was a terrible patient, complained about absolutely everything. And he used to say I was the bossiest nurse he'd ever met. Madison laughed. So how did you end up together? He came back a week after he was discharged. Said he'd come to thank me for taking care of him. But really, he came to ask me out. I said no. Seriously? Why? Because I thought he was just messing with the bossy nurse. But he came back the next day, and the day after that. On the fourth day, he showed up with a poetry book I'd mentioned I liked. How romantic. It was. Your grandpa was like that. Stubborn, but in a good way. When he decided on something, he saw it through. Madison was quiet for a moment. Do you still miss him? Every single day, sweetheart. But I've learned that missing someone can be a profound form of love, too. She took my hand, a gesture she hadn't made since she was a little girl. Thank you for telling me that, Grandma. 2 months after my birthday, I received an unexpected call from Chris. Mom, can we have dinner at your place tonight? Me, Jessica, and Chloe. Of course, son. Is everything all right? We just want to talk. Madison said you make an incredible lasagna that she's never tried. That surprised me. My lasagna was famous in the family, but it had been years since I'd prepared it for them. I spent the afternoon cooking, a complex mix of anxiety and hope swirling inside me. At 7 sharp, the doorbell chimed. To my surprise, Chris was holding a bouquet of flowers. Jessica carried a small, elegantly wrapped gift box. And Madison held an envelope in her hands. Happy belated birthday, Mom, Chris said, hugging me in a way he hadn't in years. A tight, lingering embrace, just like when he was a boy. During dinner, the conversation flowed with an ease that hadn't graced our table in ages. We talked about Chris's work, about a new course Jessica was taking, about Madison's burgeoning projects at the shelter. No one mentioned the will. No one mentioned the house. After dessert, Madison cleared her throat nervously. Grandma, I have something for you. She handed me the envelope. Inside was a formal invitation. Photography exhibition, 70 years of enduring spirit. A portrait of Susan Miller. I read aloud. It's my semester capstone project, Madison explained, her voice tinged with pride. An exhibition with your photos, telling your story. As a nurse, as a wife, as a mother, as a volunteer, as the incredible woman you are. I was utterly speechless. Madison interviewed several people, Jessica continued, her gaze soft. Your old colleagues from the hospital, the kids from the shelter. I even found some of your patients from decades ago, Grandma, Madison added, beaming. One of them teared up talking about you. He said you held his hand during a surgery when he was only 10 years old back in 1985, and that he never forgot your calming gaze. Chris cleared his throat, visibly emotional. Mom, I wanted to apologize for so much. For not valuing your story, your experience, for letting the busyness of life drive us apart. And what about the will? Jessica began, her voice hesitant. I raised my hand, interrupting her gently. The will stays as it is. It's not about money or property. It never was. It's about respect, about true appreciation. We understand that now, Mom, Chris said firmly, and we respect your decision. Madison smiled, a genuine, radiant smile. Actually, Grandma, we're here to invite you to something more. We want you to come live with us. Live with you? Yes, Chris confirmed, his voice warm. Our house is big. There's that guest room with its own bathroom. You could have your own space, but we'd be together. And I could learn more recipes, more stories, Madison added eagerly. I could even take you to college to talk about your experience as a professional woman during a tough era. I looked at the three of them, feeling an emotion so profound I couldn't quite name it. You're not doing this because of the house, are you? No, Mom, Chris answered, his voice unwavering. We're doing this because we realized, too late, that the true treasure of our family is you, not what you own. That night, after they left, I sat on the porch looking at the stars. I thought about Bob, how he would have loved to see this reconciliation. I thought about the kids at the shelter, whom I'd continue to visit regularly. I thought about Madison's exhibition, the beautiful idea of my life being valued and shared. 70 years. 70 years that were almost reduced to an outdated relic. But that would now be celebrated as a life of dignity and strength. Perhaps, I thought, smiling to myself, some relics truly deserve to be preserved. Not locked away in dusty museums, but alive, sharing their wisdom, an active, vibrant part of the present, while carrying the invaluable lessons of the past. In the end, the biggest surprise wasn't what I revealed on that tense birthday. It was what we all discovered together afterward. That it's never too late to rebuild bridges, to learn to value what truly matters, to understand that the true legacy we leave isn't measured in material possessions, but in the lives we touch and the stories we tell. And mine, at 70, was just beginning a thrilling new chapter.